The Immortal John Hancock here, and today I'm going to be talking about good and cheap Nintendo 64 games. That's right. I have a few N64 games in my collection, and I love collecting for this classic console. And you know, there is approximately near 300 titles in North America, but there are countless classics on this revered console, and I'm going to talk today about some of the cheaper and still fun to play games that you can find right now. And so this is a list. There are many others that I could have chosen from, and I want to hear what you think of my picks and in the comments below. So let's get going. All right. First up is Rogue Squadron. Star Wars Rogue Squadron was one of my favorites that I loved playing on my Nintendo 64 back in the day. I remember flipping through an Electronic Gaming Monthly magazine and just drooling over the pictures. I love the starship battles in Star Wars, all the movies. You know, there was some classic ones. Return of the Jedi comes to mind, Rogue One. And in this game, there is lots to do. There's all this backstory that you get to experience in the Star Wars universe. And so there's a lot of content here. If you love starfighter battles and are a Star Wars fan, definitely Rogue Squadron is a game for you. There's definitely replayability because you get medals for accomplishing, you know, gold, silver, or bronze when passing. There's each stage, there's secrets. There's lots to discover in this game, and I really enjoy playing it still to this day. Next up is kind of a overlooked rare classic on Nintendo 64, and that's Blascore. And this game, essentially, you are clearing the way for a nuke. You're clearing the path, just demolishing various buildings and things in terrain. And there's a lot to do in here, and it's a lot of fun. Pretty much the focus of the game is destroy things with different vehicles. And so it's not perfect, but you know, it was an early N64 classic, and I know that there's some fans out there, but some others may have not given it a try. Also, this is on Rare Replay. If you have an Xbox One, that's a way to experience it as well. But this game has a lot of content to it, and I do recommend it. If you haven't played it, it is an N64 classic. All right, Jesse, good buddy of mine, he's a big fan of this game, and I actually started working at a GameStop around the time when this game came out. And so Perfect Dark really is, for some people, a better version of GoldenEye. Now, there's fans that love this game, and there's people that don't like it as much as GoldenEye. There's the big focus here is on top of a great story. It actually, the multiplayer, I think, is better in Perfect Dark. I think it pushed the N64 to its limits. Now, there's also the Xbox Live version of this is updated, so that's another way of playing this. But if you want to play Perfect Dark on a classic N64, it's a great way to go. Multiplayer is fantastic. There's so many options in this game setting that up. I mean, I really love all the options they give you, and really for multiplayer, it's one of the best on the console. So Perfect Dark, definitely. All right, I'm a big fan of the Desert Strike series. There was many different ones made on PlayStation, N64, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and classic computers. And so Nuclear Strike, you have a helicopter and you're going around with various missions. You're escorting things, you're blowing things up. There's a lot here to enjoy. And if you like the Desert Strike series and you have an N64, Nuclear Strike's pretty good. It's also fairly affordable. You can still find this relatively cheap. It's definitely probably on the uncommon side, but I definitely recommend you checking it out. You can't talk about classic N64 games without bringing up wrestling. Now, I'm not a wrestling expert, but there are many good N64 wrestling games. The game I'm going to be showing you is not the best. I think No Mercy. There's people that debate what's the best N64 wrestling game, and so this is probably in the top 3, and it's WCW NWO Revenge. And what I like about this game is it gets the gameplay right. It feels like a wrestling game. It feels with the grapples, the holds, the moves, the players. There's lots of customization in this game. You know, it doesn't have the best customization of any of the N64 games, but there's enough here to enjoy with friends, 4-player action, different arenas, different settings. And so for a wrestling game, especially for a casual wrestling enthusiast, you're gonna love this game, and it's relatively cheap. You can find it anywhere. And really, Nintendo 64 had some other ones too. WrestleMania 2000 comes to mind, on top of No Mercy. I think No Mercy is probably one of the best games on the wrestling library for Nintendo 64, but that's a little bit more expensive. But if you're on a budget, WCW NWO Revenge. Now, there's lots of racing games on Nintendo 64, and, you know, for me, I actually enjoyed San Francisco Rush. Now, the graphics are a little rough, but what I like about this game is the branching hidden secrets when you play a track. And so it's a lot of fun to play. I really think that they did a good job of just making a fun racing game. I'm more of an arcade-style racing game enthusiast versus like a sim. And so if you like that kind of arcade-style racing, you're gonna love San Francisco Rush. Now, some people think that Rush 2 is better. I'm not gonna argue with that, but I do like some of the branching paths. There's more of that, and the soundtrack I think is a little bit better with the original Rush game. Now, this is an overlooked multiplayer game, I think, on the Nintendo 64. It often gets overlooked for GoldenEye. But 007, The World Is Not Enough, is actually a pretty good game. The single-player campaign is fairly decent, and the multiplayer options are great. And so I think if you played Perfect Dark and GoldenEye to death, and you're looking for something else to play on a Nintendo 64, and find this. It's a very affordable option for people looking for maybe playing a different map that you haven't memorized. There's lots of different options of setting up multiplayer, and I found it to be pretty decent. This next one is a lot of fun. It will disorient some people playing it, but Forsaken 64 is another great multiplayer option. It is well done. I do like what they did in this kind of futuristic ship 3D environment. You know, it's not going to be for everybody, but it's really cheap. And again, another multiplayer option. If you're looking for something different, maybe you've played some of the other classics to death, then Forsaken 64 is great. Next up, you know, I talked about this in my Joust video slightly, but Midway's Greatest Arcade Hits Volume 1 for the Nintendo 64. Now, there's lots of classics on here, including the original Robotron, Joust, Sinstar, Root Beer Tapper, and Spy Hunter. And so, is it perfect? No. But if you're looking for some great arcade classics and you don't want to go the Namco route, then this is an option. You know, Robotron 2084 is one of my favorite games of all time, and it's well done on this console. And so I definitely recommend this if you're a classic arcade enthusiast. It's a nice compilation for the Nintendo 64, which had limited software. Now, this next one is Ken Griffey Jr.'s Slugfest. If you're a baseball fan, look no further than this. I think it's one of the better baseball games on the Nintendo 64. And you know, whenever I look at like a sports game, it's just like my racing preferences. I prefer to play kind of an arcade style game versus a sim. And so while there's some great other sports games on the Nintendo 64, I kind of gravitate to kind of more of the arcade style. And Ken Griffey Jr.'s Slugfest is a nice marriage of like being fairly accurate to the time, but it's a lot of fun to play. I found myself playing, going back and playing this. Man, I really do miss playing baseball. Those are my 10 picks. Now, I want to hear in the comments below, what are your picks? What would you pick for value picks, good and cheap, for the Nintendo 64? You know, it's a great console, and I think sometimes people play like the top 40 stuff, but if you dig a little bit deeper, there's kind of like a B tier group of games that I think are wonderful to play and often overlooked. And so I picked some of these in this group, but there's some other classics that I think everybody knows about. So I want to hear your picks. I do want to hear about them, or your stories. I also love to hear about your stories and connections to playing these games, because, you know, those are some fond memories of people growing up with the Nintendo 64. And so I want to thank you. I tried something a little bit different with this video. Yes, I experimented with green screen, and you know, it's just something I always try to kind of pursue some different things with my videos, trying to push myself. What can I do? And so thank you so much for the ongoing support. I look forward to doing further videos and experimenting with some different things. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and click the bell for upcoming notifications. I do upload videos every week. Thank you so much. You folks are great. This is the Immortal John Hancock, and you take care.